Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member. I appreciate your having this hearing. Appreciate your being here today. So I read your article in the Washington Post that using the debt ceiling as leverage in the deficit debate is unwise and dangerous. You also noted that the respect and admiration of the United States and its institutions inspire around the world are based on the certainty that when our nation makes a promise, we keep it. And I take it from what I've heard here today that all of you agree with that same sentiment. I had read yours, Mr. Bentsen, that it is unacceptable for Congress to ever voluntarily default on the debt, and that continual short-term extensions of the debt limit increase unnecessary market uncertainty and raise questions about our nation's creditworthiness. So I think we're all on the same page here, and I agree. I think that makes sense. But here's my question. If the very prospect of a default costs us money and costs us our good name, I don't understand why we keep voluntarily raising the prospect of default with all these votes on the debt limit. Congress already controls the size of the debt. It gets to decide how much the government taxes and how much it spends. So don't you think it would be better if Congress replaces the arbitrary debt limit with the commitment that Treasury can borrow exactly as much as it needs to pay our bills? Mr. Keating?
Well, the technical issue, Senator, of how you change the process, if you change the process, will have to be resolved among and between you and your colleagues. There are probably many different approaches that make good sense. I think what me and my colleagues are saying is when it's all said and done, whether you scrap the debt ceiling processes exist now, if you go to another structure, another system, if you include or don't include the president in the process, then fine. I mean, just get it fixed. But I don't know what the very best solution would be. I just think it's very important to look for a solution that we don't do this every 2 years or even every 6 weeks.
So I think we're in the same place, Mr. Keating. We can't do this every year, every 2 years, every 6 weeks, since what I hear you saying is the very threat is costing us money. It's costing us our good name in the marketplace. And the way we stop doing that, it seems to me, is to take responsibility for these debts. Does that make sense?
Well, you're right. I mean, there are debts. You have to pay them off eventually.
That you've got to pay them. Anybody disagree with that?
Senator, I would just say that so much of our spending is on autopilot already. If you look at the next 10 years, mandatory spending, which doesn't get a vote here in the Congress, is 61% of outlays. Interest on the federal debt is 11% of outlays. That's about 3/4 of all our spending. My worry is if there wasn't a gut check about increases in the debt, that those numbers would simply get worse. If your household and you sit down with your spouse and you say, well, where are we, right? You've got to make a decision about whether you want the next credit card or the next purchase, because at some point it gets unmanageable.
So, Mr. Stevens, I hear you saying, in effect, you want some accountability in the system. But it seems to me that accountability means that we want to reduce wasteful and unnecessary spending, even if those votes are not politically popular. Accountability means voting to close tax loopholes so that wealthy individuals and big corporations are going to pay a fair share here. Accountability does not mean taking easy political votes and then turning around and grandstanding over whether or not we're going to raise the debt limit. The way I see this, I appreciate your thoughts on this and the importance of our not voting over and over and over on raising the possibility that we are not going to pay our debts as they come due. You know, a U.S. default is the economic equivalent of a nuclear bomb. But thanks to this arbitrary debt limit, we routinely arm that bomb and watch in horror then as the clock ticks down to zero. There has to be a better way to do this. And it seems to me the least we can do, the bare minimum we can do, is pass a long-term debt ceiling increase as quickly as possible. But really, I think we should take this option off the table. The United States should honor its obligations and pay its bills in full and on time, period. Anything else, I think you've made clear, hurts our families, hurts our businesses, hurts our country. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator.